in this synagogue was the place where Jesus walked in on the Sabbath day, and there was a man with a withered hand. And the Pharisees observed to say, will he dare to heal on the Sabbath day? And Jesus, knowing their thoughts, said to them, which of you having an ox or an ass does not loose it from its tethering, its tying place, and take it down for a drink of water on the Sabbath? He said, so if they should go free on the Sabbath, how much more should this man that's been bound? And so he looked at the man and said, stand forth. And that happened right here in this area. And the man stood forth, and Jesus said, stretch forth thy hand. And what he did, for the first time maybe in his whole life, he stretched forth his hand and he was made whole. And you would have thought everyone would have been absolutely joyous and ecstatic, but many of them, because their traditions so blinded them that they could not see an act of God when they saw it, they went home mumbling and complaining. So that's one of the things that happened here. And I think I heard Yehuda say something about this, but the other miracle that happened here in Capernaum, there were many, but one of them was the man with the palsy who went to the house, and the house was jam-packed. He couldn't get in the windows, he couldn't in the doors, but guess what? He decided that he was not going to allow anything to stop him. And so he said to his friends, take me up on the roof. And the Bible says they tore the roof off. However that may have been in those days, whether it was tiles or some people think it was branches laid over or whatever. All we know is that Peter went up on a roof similar to that and prayed at Simon the Tanner's house. Anyway, they tore the roof back, and Jesus is teaching. Now, you realize how disconcerting it would be to be teaching and someone tearing the roof off right above your head at the same time? But Jesus continued to teach, and apparently they had ropes on the four corners of the bed, and his friends let him down, and Jesus stopped, and he said, son, thy sins be forgiven thee. And immediately the religious in the group said, who does he think he is, saying that he can forgive sin? Who in the world? God alone forgives sin. Of course, what they were really confessing and didn't know that Jesus was in fact God manifest in the flesh. But nevertheless, they let him down, and they said, who can forgive sin? Only God alone. And Jesus, reading the thoughts of their hearts, said, let me ask you a question. Which is easier, to say, thy sins be forgiven thee, or take up thy bed and walk? Of course, they wouldn't answer. And he said, that you may know that the Son of Man hath power on earth to forgive sin, arise and walk. And the man stood up after being bedfast with the palsy for many years. That all happened in this little area, this little village here, and many other things as well. But it's amazing. I know outside when I look at those black stones, which very likely were part of the synagogue that Jesus actually ministered in here, it's easy to make a connection, isn't it? When you realize that it was in this synagogue, whether it was in this particular form or not at the time, but still amazing. And then he goes down to Peter's house, just a couple hundred feet away, and Peter's mother-in-law is sick, and he raises her up, and she rises and ministers to them. She was instantly healed. So great things happened here in Capernaum, and yet they did not have the revival they should have had. Like Yehuda said, Jesus said if the things would have happened in Tyre and Zidon that was done in you, they would have repented long ago. But he said, woe unto you, Chorazin, woe unto you, Bethsaida, because you have not repented at the preaching. He said, you know, they repented at the preaching of Jonah, but a greater than Jonah is here. Of course, that was the understatement of the world of the ages, because Jesus was not only greater than Jonah, he was God manifest in the flesh. So anyway, all those things happened and many more right here in this area.
Right, they close soon. There are one or two things I want to show you. So let's try and get to see them. Follow me.
Well, it looked like they taught up there, but when it came time to pray, there used to be a sculpture of a mobile ark out here. They moved it temporarily, and if you read it, they would keep that mobile ark here.
So
We are in the synagogue at Capernum. Where Jesus taught and healed for a couple of years.
God bless you.
This is part of the old city behind the synagogue.